I'm
Okay.
Trevally.
Okay. All right. So today we have a special guest that I'll introduce in a little bit. But first, I will, introduce what we're doing here. And this is kind of a podcast format via YouTube, to get the word out about the importance of plant-based eating and how people can really change their lives by adopting a plant-based diet. So first, I want to just give a welcome to what I'd like to call plant pathmakers, who are unrecognized leaders who are helping change what the world eats, one person, one meal at a time. As you might know, the plant-based movement is growing every day, thanks to the hard work of passionate plant-based giants who are showing us that the way to optimal health is by leaving behind the standard American diet, whose appropriate acronym is SAD, and adopting a plant-centered one instead. So many of us have been helped by what we've learned from them, and for this I'm grateful. But it's occurred to me over time that the voice of the many others on this path to plant-based wellness have stories to share too. Stories which have not yet been heard, but that would be valuable in motivating others to switch to a plant-based way of eating and ultimately transform their lives. In these conversations, we'll meet such people of all ages and from all walks of life who are living and eating in a plant-based way. Whether they label themselves vegan, plant-based, or whole food plant-based, the essence of what they eat is the same, plants. We'll hear their stories, including challenges and triumphs, as a way to get more people to see that they too can change their lives by changing what they eat. I believe that one person at a time, one meal at a time, together we can improve the health of the world. So today we have, a special guest, and I'm really excited to hear your story as well, because I only know you from Instagram.
Mhm.
And I myself am a newcomer to Instagram, and I immediately was drawn to your page because you really follow a very healthy plant-centered way of eating. And there's a spectrum of how people eat, and there's not a right or a wrong way to do it. But right now, myself on my journey, I'm on the spectrum of trying to eliminate some of the highly palatable things like sugars, oils, and I saw that you're doing the same. In addition, I was really, attracted to your Instagram name, Oil-Free Witchy Vegan, and I come to think of you as oil-free oatmeal witchy vegan because your magic, I believe, is in transforming oatmeal into anything, and that's kind of your witch power. And I mentioned to you just in a post that I'd never tried savory oats until I saw something of yours that you posted, a cheesy broccoli savory oats that was like a Panera cheesy broccoli soup, and I was blown away. So anyways, I'd like just to hear more about, your recipes, your story, your path, and just to, have other people hear again, because I think you have a lot to share. So if you wouldn't mind, just by starting just with an open-ended question of, tell us your story. How did you become plant-based? Why? And what's your experience? So go ahead. I'll stop talking now.
Okay. Hi. So my name's Trevally, to anyone who doesn't know. And so the reason why I became plant-based is because I was studying environmental science in undergrad, and I just felt like it didn't make sense once I made the connection between, the effects of animal agriculture on the environment. We had watched Food Inc., the documentary, and that was, one of the first documentaries that was out. We have a lot more now, but just seeing the animal cruelty and what we were actually eating, that made me go vegetarian. And then I really didn't do any research into how to eat properly and healthfully as a vegetarian. So I was pretty much just replacing meat with dairy. And then, I started educating myself, and I realized that the healthier way to do it was to just be vegan. So I went plant-based after that. So that was about 8 years ago.
That's a long time. And I like what you said for people listening, that, this is a process for me as well, it
Mhm.
wasn't that I went from the standard American diet to eating the way I am now. It's an evolution where you have awareness, first of all, about what you're eating. And, I, like you, was not only conscious of my own personal health, but, environmental reasons, as you mentioned,
Mhm.
and then, animal rights issues too, really, for me, once I knew about those from things like Food Inc. that you mentioned, and, Forks Over Knives has a documentary as well. It was hard for me to go back to eating the way I did before. But again,
Mhm.
it took some time for me. So I guess, in terms of your story, then, that's how it started. What does your diet look like today? What do you incorporate? What do you exclude? What have
Okay.
you noticed by eating this way? I guess there are a lot of questions.
Yeah. So I don't consume any animal products. I also don't consume a lot of other things by choice, not for the sake of being vegan, but just for the sake of health promoting lifestyle. So when I first switched over to being vegan, I was definitely more whole foods plant based just because it was so long ago and there really wasn't much in terms of substitutes for meat and dairy and milk and all of that. I felt amazing. I felt so good when I first made the switch. I had more energy than I had ever had. I was 21, 22 when I made the switch. So, I felt better than I felt when I was a kid, when I was a teenager. It was amazing. And then I started incorporating more processed foods into my diet. And I definitely noticed the difference after that. So, just recently, I have now started, well, I have completely cut out oil. I have cut out processed foods. I don't consume caffeine and I don't consume alcohol. But the main part of the plant-based is just eating whole foods in the plant form, anything that's not from an animal.
Hmm. Okay. Uh, and I like what you say about what you've chosen to eliminate, in terms of the caffeine, the alcohol, and there is another acronym, SOFA's free:
Mhm.
sugar, oil, flour, alcohol, salt. Uh, and I think that that's becoming more popular now for the people that really do consider themselves more purist, whole food, plant-based people, because as this movement for, veganism is growing, the food companies are looking for ways to attract people to continue
Mhm.
to buy. And so the market is becoming more and more flooded with highly palatable processed vegan foods.
Mhm.
Um, and it's becoming harder to differentiate what's healthy from not when you listen to the marketing. So I guess if you could just expound upon, why you decided to eliminate some of those things, the caffeine, the alcohol, the oils. I know that especially the oils, based upon your Instagram account, is a relatively new modification
Mhm.
of your diet. If you can just talk about why and what you've noticed, if anything, so far.
Sure. So anyone who knows me personally knows that I am like obsessed with evolution. I think that we are the way we are. Our bodies are meant to function a certain way. And by adding things in that don't belong, we don't function as well as we can. So, and should. So I think that it started with that. I read The Starch Solution by Dr. John McDougall,
Mhm.
and there was just information in that you cannot, it's indisputable. It's so interesting, and it's his stories and with how he treated patients and real stories and real science and data, and that really got me interested in all of that. So when people say like, well, why oil? The oil specifically it's not just the oil, it's the high fat
Mhm.
diets that
Mhm.
cause disease, that cause issues in the body, and the mind, honestly. So it's more so eating a high carb, because carbohydrates are our fuel, a high carb, low fat diet. And the easiest way to do that is a whole foods plant based diet that doesn't include any oils or processed foods, because
Mhm.
those usually contain oils.
Right, right.
You also asked what I've noticed.
Yes.
Yeah, so without trying, I made the switch to, just for health. But over time, I lost 20 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And what period
um,
of time was that? If I don't
so
mind.
I first like experimented with this in
Mhm,
March 2020,
mhm,
and I wasn't completely oil free. I was still eating a lot of processed vegan, like the yummy stuff, like the ice cream, the chips, and
mhm.
all of that. But my meals were oil free and more whole food based, and that brought me down about eight 8 pounds, 10 pounds. And then since January of 2022, I've lost another about 8, 9 pounds from
Wow.
being completely oil free and processed
Wow.
food
Wow.
free. Yeah.
Right. And for those of you out there who have not seen your Instagram page, you should take a look because, I guess I didn't mention, but one of the other things that really struck me is, a lot of people who do make the switch from standard American diet to plant-based, who are very overweight, lose weight quickly because it is such a drastic change. And I think it's easier to lose weight when you have more to lose, and it's harder to
Mhm.
lose weight when you don't. And what struck me from your before and after pictures is that you looked lean and fit to me before. And in your after picture, the transformation was still astounding. And
Mhm.
it sounds like from your description that it was easy to do.
It was so
But
easy.
yeah, I mean,
I
that's very
also
motivating. Yes.
I was also looking back at my old, the reason why I made the Instagram. Now it's a great community and I love, the people who I've met through it. But originally I made it just to keep track of what I was eating and recipes that I could go back to. And I was looking back on my older posts and I wasn't even, now I would say I eat probably double what I was eating when I first started because I didn't really understand how to feed my body and
Mhm.
like how to listen to what my body needed. So I'm eating like a lot.
Right.
And it's still coming off. Like I didn't weigh myself for a month and I thought I was just maintaining, and I weighed myself again and I'm still, my nutritionist calls it releasing fat, releasing
Right.
fat rather
Yeah.
than losing weight. So
Right.
yeah.
Yes. Well, that's interesting. So I know this is about you, but I guess I'm just going to interject a little bit in terms of,
Sure.
my own personal experience and my personal beliefs about, the low fat portion of the whole food plant-based. Um, if anybody's followed my Instagram, I wore a continuous glucose monitor for a little over a month, not because I have diabetes, but just to help educate myself about insulin resistance, because I believe that that is the culprit of metabolic syndrome. And what I learned in doing that is when I was eating my whole food plant-based regular diet, that my glucose variability was more than I liked. And when I adopted a low fat way of eating. So that's all I did. I was already not cooking with any oils at all, but I eliminated nuts, nut butters, flax seeds, chia seeds. So very minor. And I didn't really think I was eating a lot of them. I was cooking with them. My blood glucose variability improved right away. And I've lost weight and I wasn't able to before. And
Hmm.
this was with making a very minor tweak in what I was eating. And so I do really think I love, what your nutrition said about releasing fat. I really do think that's what it is. It's our intracellular fat that is
Hmm.
interfering with our ability of insulin to work. And insulin resistance is keeping weight on us that we don't need to have. And when you can get rid of the fat in your diet, then you get rid of the fat in your cells, uh, you know, easily. And so, I completely agree with you that that has been, uh, something I've experienced as well. And, the number on the scale is great to see going down, but also, if you think about on a cellular level, what's happening to your body, it's got to be all good, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
I would like to elaborate
mhm.
beyond the weight because that's not why I started doing
Right.
this. Um, I I I think that it's great that you mentioned like beyond the weight, what's going on at a cellular level. I think that's so interesting, but also some other benefits that I've noticed are that I struggled with anxiety my whole life. That's
Mhm.
something, I remember being like 4 and having anxiety.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I would say 2021 was like the height of my anxiety.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I would say this year I have had little to no anxiety, which
Mhm.
is I don't even, it's
Wow.
wild to think
Yes.
about that. And I started eating this way, like committing to starch solution
Hmm.
January 1st.
Right.
So it was immediate. Like it just mentally been feeling a lot better.
Hmm.
I've also noticed that my menstrual cycle has become a lot easier. Just it's been like I was joking. I was like, it's like a dream. Like it's it was like I may as well have not had it, like it didn't interfere with my life at all, and every cycle it's gotten better and better.
Hmm.
Um, and just another thing that I've noticed is I used to like kind of obsess about what I was going to eat, where I was going to go to eat if I was going out, what I can and can't eat. And this has been so liberating because now I don't have to think about that. And when I do go out, I'm going out for the experience and for the fun and, for the company rather than to have, deep fried something at a restaurant, and then feeling badly about it afterwards. So there's been a lot of benefits. The weight was kind of just like a side effect
Hmm.
to everything else.
Right. No, I think that's great. And I guess if you wouldn't mind talking about what you do when you go out to eat, because I know you've posted some things about sushi and how you order, because I think that's still, for me anyways, one of the biggest challenges when I'm home and I'm in control of what I'm eating, and that's easier. But when I go out, it's hard to really have somebody understand when you say no oil, you mean no oil,
Hmm.
or when you don't want, people think a little bit of cheese here and there doesn't make a difference, or if their pasta is made with dairy, it doesn't matter. But I guess if you could just talk a little bit about that, because I think that's difficult.
Yeah, so I think that, we're living in a time now where most restaurants are familiar with dietary needs and restrictions, not just
Mhm.
vegan, but,
Mhm.
gluten-free or whatever it might be. So as far as just general vegan, I haven't really had much of an issue,
Mhm.
but I just get very specific. So I just say, I'll order something and I'll specify, like for example, if someone is vegan and not necessarily whole foods plant-based or not necessarily concerned with low fat, if they're getting, let's say, pad thai at a Thai restaurant, right?
Mhm.
Sometimes they put egg in that and sometimes they don't.
Mhm.
So I would recommend always ordering it and saying no egg, no meat, no fish, no
Mhm.
seafood, nothing like that. Just have them tell you what's in it. Just have a conversation with the server, whoever's taking your order.
Mhm.
Um, it actually turns into a really nice conversation a lot of times. I met someone who lost like 200 pounds eating raw vegan
Wow.
when I was ordering this way, at a not vegan restaurant. She was a server at a regular restaurant, and we had a great conversation about it. So my main piece of advice would be to just don't be afraid to talk. It's just a person on the
Mhm.
other end taking your order. So I would say don't be afraid to say what you need and see what they can do, and see if they can switch things around. Some places are really, really accommodating. So
Mhm. Mhm.
um, but for specifically for oil free, I always say I can't have oil rather than no oil, because
Mhm.
usually when you say no oil, they'll put a little bit of
Yes.
oil.
Right.
Yeah, so I always say I can't have oil, and I don't think that that's dishonest. I genuinely
Mhm.
don't think I can have oil at this point,
Right.
and I don't,
Right.
I think that once you come to this lifestyle, you realize this specific lifestyle, you realize that if it's working for you, which it probably will, it's better to just say you can't have it because you
Right.
can't.
Right. No, absolutely. That's
Yeah.
good advice. I think that people are more likely to honor that than if you say, no oil. But,
Yeah.
my experience has been also paradoxically the easiest places for me to get what I eat more like at home have been to steak places, because
Hmm.
I order plain baked potato and broccoli
Yeah.
and plain
Yeah.
salad. It's crazy, but the steak places have what I would eat at home.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so you can make it work. It takes some planning, and I know, like
Yeah.
when you travel, you bring a cooler of things and you try to plan ahead. So that, I know you were out of town recently and you brought
Hmm.
food with you so that you could
Yeah.
eat like you do at home, because it's not worth feeling the way that you'll feel if you don't.
Exactly. And it's so
Mhm.
worth the effort to
Mhm.
continue feeling great.
Right, right. And it sounded
A lot of
like, yes, yes.
a
No,
lot of people will
go ahead.
travel and they'll
Right.
say that, they can't go to the bathroom, or their stomach hurts, or they don't feel great, or they
Mhm.
can't
Mhm.
sleep in a different bed. And all of that comes down to your diet too,
Right.
really it does.
Right.
So I noticed this time I was upstate in New York,
Mhm,
I
mhm.
came home and I was like, I felt like I just spent the whole weekend at home. It was great.
No, that is amazing. And I know you also mentioned on your post that the people you were with ate like you did, even though that might not have been how they eat otherwise. Is that
Right.
right? Yeah. Hmm.
Right. Yeah. I was with my cousins and they are not vegan. They
Hmm.
like vegan food and they eat vegan food quite a bit with me and by choice also on their own.
Hmm.
But yeah, when we were together, the morning before we left, they had a full plant-based, oil-free, no processed food meal.
Hmm. Wow. No, that's amazing. So you are, influencing and impacting other people's lives. And, when you know that you're going to improve people's health by doing that, it's so encouraging. So I think that's great that you're able to do that. Um, and I guess I wonder, what about, coworkers, other family, other friends, and what your experiences are like when you're with them? Do they eat like you? Is it different? Is that hard? Is it alienating? Just what have you identified?
Okay, so I have so many things I could say about this. I think that, when you are living your best life and honoring yourself,
Hmm.
people see that you are standing up for what you think your body and mind and soul and whatever need, and they get curious. That's
Hmm.
just what happens.
Hmm.
I don't think I ever am like a burden with my food choices because I'm willing to go anywhere, and if it's somewhere where I can't eat or have something, I'll just eat ahead of time. Like it's not a problem for me.
Hmm.
So people tend to be really really open to it.
Hmm.
um, Back when I was vegan and not limiting my processed food, I was talking to a coworker. This was 2 years, over 2 years ago now. And he had told me he lost a bunch of weight eating keto.
Hmm.
And, that is not a lifestyle that I support. I don't think that our bodies are meant to handle that long term. And why would you do something that is not going to work for you long term?
Hmm.
So we had, just a conversation about just regular veganism. And he actually was so intrigued that he went home and did a ton of research. And he came back to me a few months later and he was like, I've been sticking with the vegan thing.
Wow.
I've maintained my weight. And he said all of his body aches went away, and
Wow.
that was really cool to hear.
Mhm.
So just having conversations like that, and my mom actually started eating starch solutions, so high
Mhm.
carb, low
Mhm.
fat,
Mhm. Mhm.
and she's been doing great. She's been doing it for a couple months. She's also lost quite a bit of weight. She feels good. She monitors her blood sugar at home because diabetes runs in her family,
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
that's been doing well.
Mhm.
Couple of my best friends have started doing it, and it's great. It's like it's a way to like bond with people because
Right.
you learn things about your own body and the bodies of people you love and care about, through
Mhm.
this amazing way of eating. Like it's so wonderful.
Right. No, absolutely. It sounds like you've made a big impact on the people around you. And I think that's great. And you're right. When you're in the community of people that are eating like you because they want what you have, that's transformative.
Hmm.
And thankfully you haven't had the the other experience of having people, really dismiss what you're doing as being, what am I going to say, kind of like quackery, because
Hmm.
sometimes people, have had that opinion, and I try not to be preachy at all. And I tried to have people ask me questions instead, because I don't know if this has been your experience, but, even when people ask me how I eat, sometimes they interpret it as being judgmental. And
Hmm.
so I tried to be really quiet. And that's why, like I said, communities like Instagram and like seeing what you do are so encouraging to me, and to hearing your story, and to hopefully getting this word out, because, I think that there's a very small number of us, even though when we're in it, we feel like there's a lot, but, I think
Yeah.
that, together, I think we can really, impact the health of a lot of people. And so, I'm excited to hear your experience, and the people that you've impacted as a result. Yeah, I think that's just very
Likewise.
encouraging. Yes. And so, those are all great things. What about challenges that you've experienced either along the way or currently, either in, eliminating things or people's reaction, anything that, that's been difficult, or has there been anything that's been difficult?
I think, people always say like I wouldn't know where to begin, or,
Mhm,
and I always tell them, you eat the way, to the people who are not currently vegan or plant-based,
mhm.
you eat the way you eat because of a lifetime of experimenting. You
Yes.
didn't eat this way when you were 13. It took time for you to get to a place where you're eating the way you are now. And
Mhm,
if you're not 100% happy, keep experimenting
mhm, mhm,
and try veganism, try being plant-based, try being whole food plant-based. I went through all the steps. I went through, I've been pescatarian in the past, vegetarian, vegan, whole foods, plant-based vegan, back to junk food vegan. Like I've been all over the spectrum, and I've experimented and I figured out what works for me, and I'm still experimenting.
mhm,
Um, of course, there are challenges. It's sometimes frustrating to see that there are people who can eat all kinds of junk and they seem to be perfectly healthy and
mhm,
have perfect skin and have no problems.
mhm,
And,
mhm.
that's not reality for most of us. So,
Right.
it's been trial and error trying to figure out what works best for my body. And I'm still experimenting, but I think I'm on the right path. And that's kind of really exciting. So,
Yes,
yeah.
definitely. Right. And the interesting thing is, I too, uh, notice when I'm not eating in line with my best, um, objectives, that I do feel it. And my daughter as well. And she's very sensitive to what she ingests. And she's been frustrated. And I've said to her, tried to reframe it, that, she's lucky that her skin breaks out when she eats sugar, because it's a reminder to
Yes.
her right away that
Yeah.
that's a toxin for her. And other people who seem to be able to eat it and not have a reaction don't know what it's doing to their body. So,
Hmm.
it may be not such a bad thing,
Yeah,
to be sensitive to what we're eating, because that's a motivation, right?
definitely.
Um,
Yeah.
so, if you wouldn't mind then giving us kind of an idea of what you eat in a day. I know, like I said before, you eat a lot of oatmeal, and before we go on, I want to say, your oatmeal looks amazing, and I usually make it with, like I said, the steel cut oats. But just yesterday, what I did, kind of as a modification of what you do, I made your oats, but I didn't put the fruit in it, and I, made it kind of like a batter, and I put it in a Belgian waffle maker. So I had, it was the oats with the
Oh,
carrots and the cocoa powder, and it was really good. And then I put
that
this
sounds
fruit
so
on top.
good.
Yeah, but so I stole your idea, but kind of I put it in a little form. Anyways, but yeah, go ahead if you wouldn't mind
I'm
just
gonna have to try
sharing.
that. That sounds so
Yeah, I think
good.
it worked pretty well, without, I mean, it stuck together. I was surprised, but oatmeal, once it's kind of mixed, it's kind of got that batter like
Yeah,
consistency, right?
yeah.
But anyways, if you wouldn't mind just going ahead and sharing with us what kinds of things you eat in a day.
So I typically start my day with oatmeal. I just love it. I'll either do oatmeal with fruit, or I'll do oatmeal with fruit and vegetables, usually zucchini or carrots, grated, just thrown in. If you do equal parts oatmeal, equal parts vegetable, you're having double the amount of food for the same amount of like calories and fat.
Mhm.
Um, and then I'll, flavor it with usually bananas now. Bananas are a great sweetener. I use some alcohol-free vanilla extract sometimes, some unsweetened cocoa powder. It's so good. It just,
Mhm.
it's so great. It keeps me full for a long time. It gives me energy and I feel satisfied. I feel like there's a difference between feeling full and satisfied. You
Mhm.
can feel stuffed eating anything, but do you really feel satisfied? And that's what gets me excited about the oatmeal. So
Mhm.
usually I'll have that for breakfast. I don't drink any caffeine. I don't consume any caffeine. So I'll usually have just honestly, I just love hot water. But sometimes I'll have like an herbal tea, but hot water is like my favorite thing to drink. So that's breakfast. For lunch, usually either like a Japanese sweet potato or regular potato or sweet potato, or rice with vegetables on the side. I do that for dinner also. It's the same kind of thing. So I'll
Mhm.
do different kinds of vegetables, different kinds of starch. Just today I was thinking like I want to try something new. So I picked up some russet potatoes because I don't normally have regular potatoes. I usually stick to sweet potatoes, Japanese sweet potatoes. Those are my two, and then like rice. So yeah, and then I have my California balsamic, the oil-free
Mhm.
balsamic. I put that on everything. And
That stuff is
spices are
amazing. Yes,
it's
that stuff
so
is amazing.
good.
Right.
So good. And spices are like they really step any meal up. You can put fresh basil, fresh cilantro. You can put powdered spices in, garlic, anything, and it completely changes the flavor of a dish. So
Mhm.
I like to
Mhm.
experiment. I love to cook, but I love my simple meals too.
Right. Right. And I think that that's a key. Had I been listening to your what I eat in a day, 20 years ago, I probably would have thought it sounded plain maybe, but
Mhm.
now that I eat that way, it sounds amazing. And what I've
Mhm.
learned is that the simpler, like you mentioned, the simpler my food is, the more likely I am to be compliant with what it is in my food plan, and the better I feel. And that's
Yeah.
really the key.
Yeah.
When I try to include too many, especially the salt, the sugar, the oil, for me are real triggers for overeating and for not ever being satisfied. It's like that.
Mhm.
What's the expression? One bite is too much, and at the same time, not enough.
Mhm.
Um,
Oh,
and like you said about the
yeah.
oatmeal, right? That when I eat this way, I'm full but not stuffed and satisfied. Um, and have freedom from food. So I'm like you. I found that this way of eating, the more I adhere to it, the easier it is, and the better I feel. I think
Definitely.
that's an important message.
Yeah.
Particularly because I don't know about you, but I get really sucked into a lot of the pictures of vegan desserts on Instagram, and I have to remember, when I look at the ingredients, that they're not good for me. A lot of them, with the oils and the sugars, and they're just not. They're not. They don't work for me.
I had the biggest sweet tooth,
Hmm.
to which I think that someone educated in nutrition would say, everyone has a sweet tooth really because we are meant to crave glucose to fuel ourselves.
Yes.
I think that I was such a dessert person, even when I cut out cooking with oil at home, I would still go through like a pint of vegan Ben and Jerry's in a day. I could do it in a day. It was, so I get that, but I think that from being on this for just now, it's been what, 3.5 months,
Mhm.
3.5 months. I go to the grocery store and I'm not even slightly tempted anymore. I went grocery shopping today and I
Mhm.
was thinking like, if someone paid me $1,000, would I have a bite of Ben and Jerry's? And I was like, no, I wouldn't. Like, nothing is worth going back on this lifestyle. Once
Right.
you get used to it and once you see how good you feel, it really changes your perspective on
Mhm.
things.
Mhm. Mhm.
I mean,
No,
that's my
absolutely.
personal experience. I'm a
Yeah.
very like all or nothing kind of
Oh,
person. So,
absolutely. Yeah. Right. No, for me too. When I don't
yeah,
have it in me, and I guess people ask, this whole thing about, food addiction, and is it real? Is it not real? And I believe that the companies
absolutely.
that make these foods make them addictive, and that there are substances in them that keep us craving more. And when
Yeah.
I don't have them, I don't want them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the best freedom there is, right? Because if,
Right.
what did I hear somebody say once? If there is no craving, there is no struggle.
It's so
Uh,
true.
and that's worth all of this. Anyway, so I'm completely in agreement with you. And I did see your grocery haul a little bit, your bags, and it's so funny that like I said, I followed you because your food looks like my food, and those are the people I tend to follow. But uh, it looks delicious to me, what you bring home and what you make, and I so appreciate your oatmeal posts especially. um, and I'm encouraged. I guess part of social media can again be divisive in having people feel, isolated. That's, been a popular topic, but for me, it makes me feel connected. Like there are other people out there doing what I'm doing, and this is good. And, it does give me ideas. Like I said, your oatmeal ideas, change things up a little bit. And so, I appreciate that.
Yeah, yeah, I feel the same way. It's a great community. It's great to see
Yes.
other people living their best lives.
Right. So what would you say, do you batch cook? What do you always have, in your refrigerator? And have you made any modifications to things that you used to eat before that now you've, turned into plant-based, or, just kind of recipes and kind of mechanisms of, how you make sure you have what you need on hand?
So I usually batch cook my starches. So I actually have some potatoes in the oven right now. I'll make a lot of potatoes at once, and then I refrigerate them, and then just have them throughout, the next few days. I do the same with rice. I'll make a big pot of rice, and then I have rice for a few days. My oatmeal, I usually make the night before if I'm doing overnight oats,
Mhm.
because it's so fun to make it. I just like look forward to making it every night. And if I'm working from home, or if it's a weekend, I'll just make it the morning of. And then as far as vegetables, I love vegetables, so I feel like if I make a bunch, I will just keep eating the vegetables. So
Mhm.
I have found that I can't really batch cook them, otherwise I'll just eat them. Not that it's a bad thing to eat them. It's not like you can overeat the, spinach or anything like that, but or broccoli, which is my personal favorite. But I just tend to run out, and then there's no point in batch cooking. So
Mhm.
I usually make fresh vegetables like every couple of days, and then I'll batch cook my starches. As far as like favorite recipes, um, I used to love like pancakes and waffles, and I
Mhm.
have found that a Japanese sweet potato tastes better and more satisfying, and it like hits that sweet tooth better than any pancake has ever done in my life. So
Mhm.
I love having that with some berries on top or some bananas on top. That's
Mhm.
like my pancake replacement, and I love it even more.
Mhm.
Um, Another thing I like to do is mushroom gravy. So I'll
Mhm.
throw
Mhm.
in some lentils, mushrooms, onions, garlic, spinach, and just let it cook with some spices. And that's a really great gravy replacement.
Mhm. 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 Right. And when you said, I have to say that the funny thing about the Japanese sweet potato, when I first started, really becoming whole food plant-based, I used to read things that people would say that Japanese sweet potatoes were like cake to them.
They
And
are.
I couldn't, I didn't see that initially, but
Yeah.
the more you eat it and the more you're away from the real cake, the more you realize it's kind of like cake,
Oh,
right? I mean,
that's so interesting you say that. So on my birthday this year, I made Japanese sweet potatoes with apples. I just chopped up apples with cinnamon, and I think that's all I did. It was just cinnamon. That's all my mom had. I was at my parents' house. And if I was at home, I would have done alcohol-free vanilla extract also. But yeah, it was just apples, cinnamon, topped over air fried Japanese sweet potato. And I made a lot,
mhm.
thinking like, oh, I'll have leftovers for the next day or two. Everyone in my family ate it. Like they
Wow.
loved it. It
Wow.
was,
Wow.
I was like happy because I loved that
Wow.
they loved it, but I was also disappointed because I was like, wait, this was.
There's none left. Right. Right. Well, on my last birthday, I was still eating nuts. And so I had the sweet potato, but I had peanut butter on top, which, something that my daughter taught me. And so since I don't do that now, but, one thing I try not to eat processed foods.
Mhm.
There is a product that I do like. Actually, two of them, they're protein powders. One of them is called Naked PB powder, and it's just
Yes.
defatted peanuts. And
Yeah.
the other is Anthony's almond protein powder. And if you put it in smoothies, it thickens them and it just gives a little subtle flavor. And so, I guess I'm not a purist in terms of not having processed things, but to me, these, I think they're pretty good.
Mhm.
Um, and so, yeah, so I've had, I guess this is a long way of saying what I do. I use a lot of cinnamon like you do. Also, and to me, cinnamon is sweet. And
So
so I
good.
mix a little bit of this naked peanut powder and water and cinnamon, and I put that on top, and it tastes like something sweet to me.
That sounds really good.
So anyways, yeah. So, but I'm with you with the cinnamon and with the sweet potatoes. And
Yeah.
yeah, it is really interesting how your palate does change. And I know, what you say about having the vegetables. What I tend to do is I tend to have a lot of cut up raw vegetables. So, it's harder to get through a lot of raw vegetables, and then I can use them that way. So if I want to eat them raw, I have them. And if I
That's
want
a
to
good
cook them.
idea.
Anyway, so that's just been something, that I do. And it's funny. I don't know if people look in your refrigerator, but when people come over, they always want to see what do you what do you guys eat and what do you have in your refrigerator. Um, and it's different. And you said something before that I forgot to comment on, but the volume of food when I'm eating with other people, they're astounded by the
Yeah.
volume. And I don't say, but I'm thinking, what you're eating is a lot more calorie dense. And so that's why it looks like
Hmm.
smaller, but really you're eating a lot more than I am, even though I'm eating, a kale salad that's the size of my head, really, right? I mean, that's what happens when you eat low calorie density. You have a lot
Yeah.
of volume.
Yeah. This was back in January. With COVID, we're not doing meetings in person as often, but this was an in-person meeting back in January. And I had my oatmeal breakfast with me, and everyone was like, "That's yours." They were like, "Where does it all go?" And meanwhile, when they had like lunch catered, they had big sandwiches and cookies,
Right.
and everyone was eating all of that. And I was like, it's so interesting
Yeah.
how, yeah, what we think and know about food. Yeah.
Right. Right.
As a
Right.
society.
No, absolutely. But and then something that you mentioned also, again, the oatmeal before, was putting zucchini in it. And again, until I'd seen, again, I'd read about cauliflower mixing with oatmeal or zucchini.
That's
I
another
never
one.
tried it
Yeah.
until I saw yours, and I put carrots in it. It sweetens it. The
Yep.
carrots. It's good to put
It's
vegetables in it.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I thank you for that. So I've learned, a lot from following your pictures, and your pictures are beautiful. I love, your plates, the little fish. I think that's
No.
on the plates, right? I think that's what they are.
Yeah, yeah, it's a fishbowl.
Yeah. So, I've learned a lot, and yeah, I appreciate it. And I look forward to seeing, what you're eating and what you're going to post. And
No.
so that's fun for me. So I appreciate that.
That's great. It's fun for me too. It's become like I'm fairly new to Instagram also for my food. Yeah. And
Mhm,
it's been so fun just like connecting with people who eat the same way and
mhm,
getting,
mhm,
ideas from other people and just connecting through DMs with people who eat this way. It's been so great.
mhm,
So,
mhm.
and it's
Right.
also really helpful to hear, I made that post about trying to go even lower fat just to see how my
Yes.
body responds. And it was great to hear your experience. It's really encouraging.
Yeah.
So,
Right. Right. Well, I think that's going to be probably, I told my daughter this already, because I tell her, listen to what I say, because I kind of have my ear to the ground about what's coming next. And I think that's going to be the next big thing, is really, not low fat in the way it used to be. Low fat was a fad for a while. And what happened with low fat way of eating is that, the simple carbohydrates, the processed carbohydrates went up.
mhm,
That's not really the low fat that's beneficial. But I do
mhm.
think probably people are going to be, people that are really paying attention to what they're eating. And I think this whole thing about insulin resistance and, blood sugar maintenance, I think that's going to be really connected to decreasing the fat in what we're eating. And I don't know, for me, I don't know about for you, I don't know where it will lead. I don't know how long I will be, eliminating nuts, but I don't miss them now. So why not continue? Right.
That's the thing. Yeah. If you don't miss it, I think, the thing is that your body will always miss what it needs.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And so I know if I were to just cut out fruit,
mm-hmm,
I know that I wouldn't be able to kick that craving because I think
mm-hmm,
my body genuinely functions well on fruit and needs that fruit. But as far as the higher fat foods, sure, people can indulge once in a while, but my mentality is why do it if I don't want to? And then struggle with when can I have it? When can I not? When can I limit? When should I not limit?
mm-hmm,
It's people always ask me, like, isn't it so limiting to eat this way? And I think it's actually the most liberating thing that I've ever done for myself because there's no question of what to do. It's just this is how I eat. This
mm-hmm.
is what works for me. And that's it. I'm never struggling with saying no to something unhealthy. And yeah.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. For me, it has been liberating. And, you know, on my Instagram, I don't really have this because I haven't been too long on Instagram. But if you look at my link, I do have a website also. And, my story is a little bit different than yours. I mean, by being plant-based, I lost a significant, I'm not even 5'2", and I lost 70 pounds. That's a lot of weight.
Wow.
And again, it's always continuing to tweak that, but I didn't even know it was possible to feel this good until
That's so
I
great.
changed.
Yeah.
I didn't know I did, by all measurable parameters, my blood pressure was great, my cholesterol was great, my blood sugar was great. I was, quote, healthy, but you can't be healthy when you're that overweight.
Mm-hmm.
And, so the benefits that I've seen in changing what I eat have been striking. And that's why for me, I really think it's important to spread this word of plant-based, because it is more than just what's being measured.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I was supposedly, except for my weight, I was healthy before, but I wasn't. And I think people really need to hear that. People need to hear that there's a different, what do I want to say? A different level being healthy. And it sounds like you've experienced it, and how great for you to do that and to be influencing your family and friends and coworkers in that way, because it's a message that we do need to hear.
Definitely.
So, yes. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, and I don't think I have any other specific questions. I don't know if you have anything to summarize, or things that you think are, most important for people that are either considering or are early in their path, tricks, hints, suggestions for people. What would you recommend to somebody who was coming to you?
I think that it's important to know that there's so many different levels of being vegan, and by us having this conversation, even though you and I both eat very similarly, we not everybody needs to do that right away or at all if they don't need to. But as Dr. McDougall says, you're not special. This way of eating will work for you. So that is something to consider. But for someone just turning to veganism for the first time, I would say be patient with your body. It is better for you. Just even if you're just cutting out the animal protein and the animal fats, like that is still better for you, even if you're not cutting out all the processed food and all the high fat foods. Be patient with your body, be patient with other people. Other people sometimes people don't want to do it because of the social aspect of it, but really, like, if you're doing what's right for you and you're not looking down on anyone, which why would you? You're just doing this for yourself. No one's going to have an issue with it, and it's great. Like I highly recommend trying it out, and be patient. Do your research, try different things, try different ways of eating. And then if you're looking to cut out processed food, I would say either know your personality, and if your personality is to ease into things, then ease into it. And if you're a 100% in or out kind of person like I am, then just go for it, and stick with it, because it will get easier and it'll become like the easiest thing you've ever done.
Right. Yes. And for me, I think that would be how I would summarize it. It will get easier. It's like if you practice, like anything else, right? The more you practice, the easier it gets.
I actually had to, while I started eating this way, it almost felt too easy. And I felt like I was being, when you like start something new and it's like exciting and it's like work that you're putting into it, it just felt so easy. I was like, what now? Right. So I actually started going to yoga because I was like, I just need something to feel like I don't know. I feel like it's just like years of growing up thinking that dieting is supposed to be difficult or changing the way you eat is supposed to be difficult. And I was just like, it's too easy. It didn't feel like I made a change, even though I was feeling good. It just didn't feel like on the outside I was doing anything. So I was like, I need to pursue a hobby that's a little bit more challenging so that I feel like I'm doing something. It's very easy.
Well, yoga's a good thing. I love yoga.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
yeah, that's
same.
that's that's a good habit to adopt as well. But
Yeah.
yeah, right,
Yeah,
right.
definitely.
Yes. Well, good. Well, again, I can't thank you enough for sharing your story, and hopefully getting this message out will not only, be impactful on your community, which you've already had a significant effect on, but, to the world at large, and who knows where this will go. But I, greatly appreciate, again, you sharing your story and for helping lead this plant-based movement, so that others can see, that it is not that difficult, and that by changing what you eat, you can change your life. And, I've learned a lot from your journey, and I know other people will learn a lot from it as well. And again, thank you.
Thank you.
So, and again, I guess I will stop recording this now, and then we'll, put this on Instagram and where else? YouTube. And hopefully lots and lots of people will see this, and I'll send you a copy too. And, hopefully, be inspired by what they've heard from you. And, you're beautiful. And I think that's a big selling point too. You can tell you're beautiful inside and out. And, I think that's very attractive to people. Again, people want what you have. People see the glow, they can see the health, and they can see the peace in you. And, who wouldn't want that? So again,
Thank
thank you. Thank you.
you. Very nice to
All
meet
right.
you.
Okay. You too. All right.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.